Hey everyone, Written here, and tonight we're going to be covering the first two episodes of Marvel Studios' inaugural original series, WandaVision. Hey everyone, Written here, and I must say I'm incredibly excited for what we have here on our agenda tonight. Getting right down to it, today WandaVision made its long-awaited debut on Disney Plus on streaming, releasing its first two episodes of its initial 9-episode run, in which the rest of the episodes will be released weekly. This show has been talked about and anticipated for so long, it doesn't even seem real that it's here now. Insofar as we know at the outset, WandaVision centers around our titular characters, Elizabeth Olsen's Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, and Paul Bettany's Vision, who in the aftermath of Avengers Endgame are living very idyllic suburban lives in the cozy town of Westview. Now, for very obvious continuity reasons, this brings into question, how is any of this even possible? As in the MCU at this point in time, Vision is dead, and Wanda is in deep grieving, with Vision having been killed by Thanos at the end of Avengers Infinity War. Coming into this show, there is a lingering sense of suspense and mystery, as there has been very little light shown on anything plot-wise past the promotional plot premises we've been given. Anyone familiar with the comics would be very quick to refer you to the House of M comic book storyline, which was published in 2005 and was a follow-up to the storylines of Planet X and Avengers Disassembled, in which Scarlet Witch suffered a mental breakdown and as a result of her immense powers created an alternate reality, whereas instructed by her brother Quicksilver, she made everyone happy. There are also odes to and plot points deriving from some of the work done by Tom King in his run of Vision, as I, and possibly you, aren't that familiar with these items, and in congruence with the fact that Kevin Feige and Marvel have proven time and time again that they have no fear in straying from and or adapting the comic storylines they see fit, we will use these past texts as baseline references, but do our best to react to and discuss what we see in the show primarily. And what we see in the show is more than enough to keep the mind from idling. I love how the decision was made to really lay into the sitcom style of television production, at least with the early episodes. And as we begin the first, we're taken directly into what appears to be the show's best impression of an I Love Lucy, Dick Van Dyke style introduction. The cool thing here is that last week it was revealed the theme song for WandaVision was actually composed by the Frozen songwriting duo Kristen Anderson Lopez and Robert Lopez. As we progress through the first episodes and into the second, it is very obvious that there seems to be no rush to hurry along the narrative trend of the show. Much of the first episode is spent laying the groundwork for where Wanda and Vision are at this point in their cheery lives, and it just so happens that today is a special day, although neither of them seem to know or remember why. Vision's boss, from his super sketch job it seems, has imposed a dinner date with his wife and our protagonist, and as a result, we get the first glimpse of what kind of humor we can expect. As while Vision believes the event of the day to be dinner with his boss and wife, Wanda believes it to be of a more sensual nature, as a result of her introduction to and conversation with another of the show's new characters, Agnes. The entirety of the episode, aside from a scene during the actual dinner, which starts to pull the wool back from maybe whatever sinister truth lies beneath, really does pass for a full-on sitcom show from the 1950s. As mentioned during Elizabeth Olsen's recent sit-down with Jimmy Kimmel, we also get a pretty cool House of M Easter egg here in the form of the wine being poured at the table, being named Maison de Mépris, which translates to House of Misery / Contempt. After the credits roll for the show, we see someone seemingly at a desk with a sword logo, watching the whole occurrence from a TV monitor, which just adds to the long list of questions we the viewers are compiling. Is Vision's tie with 2 dots inside of a box and 2 dots on the outside an Easter egg indicating that he and Wanda are trapped inside of something, whilst also being on the outside as well? Moving into the second episode, we've now entered the 1960s, as we're met with an intro and production style reminiscent of Elizabeth Montgomery's and Dick York's Bewitched. The episode begins with the two sleeping in separate beds, as was customary at this point in time in American television, and hearing very loud banging noises from outside. Now, as viewers who have likely seen the trailers released over the past few months, we know that SWORD, Nick Fury's newly helmed organization we got to see a glimpse of at the end of Captain Marvel, is set up somehow and somewhere along the outskirts of Westview. Interestingly enough, in the MCU, it would seem the SWORD acronym stands for something a bit different than in the comics, that being the Sentient Weapon Observation Research Division, whereas in the comics, traditionally it stood for Sentient World Observation and Response Department, which makes sense as to how they would be best used here in this show, as Wanda and Vision are sentient weapons, being beings of immense and uncapped power. It is my belief that the recurring banging noises aren't simply tree branches hitting windows, but actual attempts from SWORD to get in and figure out what is going on. So, here we find our couple is preparing for the Westview Talent Show, which is the only source of fundraising for the local elementary school, in a scene which, whether intended or not, ends up being quite hilarious when you consider the fact that two of the MCU's most powerful characters are rehearsing for an illusion performance utilizing fake magic. Both characters have sidebars of their own to take care of, such as Vision going to the neighborhood watch meeting at the library and Wanda going with Agnes to the planning meeting for the talent show. In both places, we get to see the rounding out of the cast for the first time. At the neighborhood watch meeting, we get to see more of Asif Ali's character Norm, as well as the experience of knowing what a simple piece of Big Red can do to our favorite all-powerful Infinity Stone derived AI machine. Further solidifying our earlier suggestion, before Wanda leaves for her festivities of the day, she comes across a very interesting find in a red miniature helicopter in the home's front shrubbery with the SWORD logo on it, which visually shakes her up a bit, as this is another splash of color in our black and white world. At the planning meeting, we get more of Agnes, introduction to Jolene Purdy's Beverly, Emma Caulfield Ford's Dottie, and we finally get to reunite on screen with Teyonah Parris's Monica Rambeau, who you might remember we've met before briefly and brilliantly in 2019's Captain Marvel, portrayed by Akira Akbar as the daughter of Maria Rambeau, who was played by fan favorite Lashana Lynch. And it's me, I'm the fan. This scene in particular was very intriguing to me, as I came into the show knowing Monica Rambeau, a character straight out of the comics, would be played by Paris as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I wasn't under the impression she would be a part of the town's community, but more an instrument of incursion. So the question then becomes, is she here undercover, or did she make her way into town for that purpose and then get caught up in the web or influence of whatever it is that has Wanda and Vision as well, because they too don't seem to know who they are past their cushy life in the suburbs and their powers. Dottie, who per Agnes runs the town and then the circle of who's who, ends up being the conduit for us to get another glimpse under the hood as to what's really going on in the show. When during an exchange with Wanda, a radio is triggered and we can hear someone quite alarmingly asking Wanda what is happening and who is doing this to her. In delightful fashion, we do in fact get to see the talent show and the entirety of the couple's performance, which ends up being Wanda doing her very best to hide and cover up Vision's real powers, which he clumsily displays as a result of being intoxicated in some way by the gum in his system. By way of her powers, she ruses the audience with obvious logical explanations as to how the feats are being performed. This episode for me was better even than the first, and finished on a very strong note in both suspenseful and joyful twists, as, now finally home after the day's events, Wanda and Vision venture outside to discover the source of more banging and are greeted by a beekeeper exiting a sewer with a SWORD logo on his back, to which Wanda says no, rewinds the occurrence, and now appears to be pregnant. A moment that leads to us, the viewers, finally getting to see our heroes in living color for the first time. This is another glimpse of Wanda's power and the control she seems to have here in this reality. But to return to the question at hand, who is that beekeeper? The first two episodes, besides the ones we've already discussed, are chocked full of Easter eggs, of both the very noticeable and obvious variety, as well as the small and more meta ones, as in the 6 stars that appear around the moon in the opening sequence of episode 2, which is an obvious ode to the 6 Infinity Stones. Also, the Hydra logo shown in the daytime ad for the Strucker watch, referencing Baron von Strucker, and Grim Reaper's helmet and bones shown when Vision is phasing through the floor, which goes all the way back to the Vision miniseries from 2015, as well as the first splash of color we get in the ominous blinking red light in the Stark Industries Toastmate ad with the very sinister tagline, "Forget the past, this is your future." So, in summary, I really like these first 2 episodes. Both 30 minutes in runtime. I don't think Marvel could have nailed the dynamic of this off-the-wall tale any better with these debut pieces. And as a result, I am anxiously awaiting next week's episode 3. I will be doing weekly episodic reviews of this show, so please be sure to come on back next weekend to get caught up and be a part of the discussion. There are so many questions still to be answered and 7 episodes left for us to watch, digest, discuss, and enjoy. Again, guys, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that bell for notifications if you've enjoyed our content here tonight. Jump down in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And while you're at it, be sure to check out some of the other content here on the channel. All of the necessary links are listed here below for you to keep up with the coming content and shareables. Please be sure to follow me on all social media platforms. Or just the one you use most frequently. We are slowly but surely building a community here, and I would personally love for you to be a part of that. And last but not least, we have a merch store. So whether you see something you like or just simply want to support the channel, head on over to our shop and grab something. Or grab everything. But again, thank you so much, guys and gals, for visiting here with us today. I really appreciate each and every viewing minute of your time you've given us. There's loads of content we'll be sending your way, so I'll be seeing you. But for now, be blessed. And it was written.
Across the nighttime, the city sleeps beside.